At 15, I thought the worst thing in life was being sick. I was wrong. The worst thing was hearing my dad, the man who once carried me on his shoulders, point at the door during a raging storm and scream, "Get out of my house. I do not need a sick daughter." All because of a lie my sister told, a lie that shattered my family. I walked into the storm with nothing but my backpack. 3 hours later, police were pounding on our door, and when Dad heard what happened to me, his face went pale. Stay with me, because what came next changed everything. The storm began long before the thunder did. It started inside our house, inside my family, hours earlier. By the time the sky finally split open, I was already drowning in something far worse than rain. I was 15, shivering on the living room floor, my jacket half-zipped, my breathing tight from the fever I'd been hiding for 2 days. I thought Dad would notice, maybe ask what was wrong. Instead, all his attention was on my older sister, Claire, standing behind him with folded arms, pretending to cry. "She's lying, Dad," Claire said, pointing at me. "She said she hoped you'd crash your car because you didn't buy her the new phone. She hates this family." I gasped. "I never said that. Dad, I swear." But Dad didn't look at me. Not once. His jaw tightened, and something cold settled into his eyes, something I'd never seen directed at me before. "I've had enough," he said, voice shaking not from emotion, but rage. "Get out." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the doorway behind him. I stared at him in disbelief. "Dad, it's pouring. I'm sick. Please, listen to me." He stepped closer, shouting now. "Get out of my house. I do not need a sick daughter causing trouble." Claire hid her smirk behind her hand. My throat tightened. The room spun. But I forced myself to stand, numbness spreading through my legs. If he didn't want me there, then I wouldn't stay. I opened the door. Wind slapped my face like ice. Rain instantly soaked through my clothes. I looked back one last time, waiting, hoping, for him to stop me. He didn't. He stood with his arms crossed, eyes hard, as if I were a stranger. So I walked into the storm. Alone. And the night swallowed me whole. People think storms start with thunder. But sometimes, they start with a whisper. That morning, before the rain, before the yelling, before my dad's words cut through me like glass, everything had seemed normal. I was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, trying to hide my cough so Dad wouldn't worry. My fever had been rising all night, but I didn't want to be a burden. I never wanted to be that. Claire walked in, hair perfect, makeup flawless, acting like she owned the world. She glanced at me and scoffed. "Still pretending to be sick?" "I'm not pretending," I said quietly. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Dad promised to buy me that new phone today. If he spends money on your stupid medicine instead, I swear." I blinked. I didn't ask for medicine. Or money. You don't have to. You just exist. That's when Dad walked into the kitchen. Before I could speak, Claire rushed to him, grabbing his arm dramatically. "Dad," she cried, "you won't believe what she said." My stomach dropped. Not again. She said she wished you'd crash your car so you'd learn a lesson about ignoring her. And she said she hates this family. I froze. The words hit me like icy water. "Claire, why are you lying?" Dad looked at her trembling shoulders, her fake tears, the perfect performance she'd mastered. Then he looked at me, the sick, tired girl in oversized clothes who rarely fought back. Guess who he believed? "I'm tired of your behavior," he snapped at me. "Always causing problems." I felt my throat tighten. "Dad, I never." "Enough," he said, slamming his hand on the counter. And that was the moment the real storm began. Quiet, invisible, deadly. A storm born from a single lie. The storm didn't wait for me to be ready. The moment I stepped outside, the sky unleashed everything it had been holding back. Rain hammered my skin like needles. My hoodie clung to me, heavy and cold, each drop pulling me down as if the world itself wanted me to disappear. My fever made everything blur. Streetlights stretched into streaks, shadows swayed like ghosts. I wrapped my arms around myself and walked. One step. Another. And another. Every few minutes, my knees threatened to buckle, but I forced myself forward. I kept hearing Dad's voice echoing in my head, louder than the thunder. "I do not need a sick daughter." I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. Houses I'd grown up around suddenly felt unfamiliar, their warm lights glowing behind curtains that belonged to families who loved each other. Families who wouldn't throw their daughter out in a storm over a lie. My breath grew thin. Each inhale scraped my chest. My fingers went numb. Keep walking, I whispered to myself. Just keep going. I told myself I'd go to Jenna's house, my best friend. But with every step, her house felt farther away. My head throbbed. My vision dimmed. A flash of lightning lit the road, revealing something ahead. An old shed, abandoned for years, leaning crookedly like it might collapse any second. But right now, it felt like the only place I could hide from the storm and from the truth tearing me apart. I stumbled toward it, my legs shaking uncontrollably. By the time I reached the door, my strength finally gave out. I slid down against the wood, curling into myself, trembling violently. My last thought before darkness swallowed me was simple and heartbreaking. If I don't wake up, will Dad even care? When I opened my eyes again, the world was quiet, too quiet. The storm still raged outside, but in the shed, everything felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. My body ached. My head throbbed. Every breath burned. I tried to lift my hand, but even that felt impossible. That's when I heard footsteps. Soft ones at first, then faster, panicked. The shed door creaked open, and a beam of light cut through the darkness. A voice, shaky, older, full of concern, broke through the roaring in my ears. "Oh dear God, sweetheart, can you hear me?" A woman knelt beside me. Gray hair, wrinkled hands, kind eyes that widened with fear when she touched my forehead. "She's burning up," she whispered, more to herself than to me. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a weak, broken sound. She pulled off her coat and wrapped it around me with trembling hands. "You poor thing, what on earth are you doing out here alone?" I wanted to tell her everything, about the lie, the shouting, the door slamming behind me. But my voice wouldn't obey. Her expression hardened with urgency. "You're freezing. Stay with me, okay? Stay awake." She took out her phone, her fingers fumbling as she dialed. "Yes, hello? This is Margaret from Willow Street. There's a girl here, maybe 15. She's unconscious, freezing, and burning with fever. Please, send an ambulance. Hurry." Her voice cracked on that last word. She gently brushed the wet hair from my face. "Hold on, sweetheart. Help is coming. You're not alone anymore." Sirens began faintly in the distance, and as they grew louder, my world faded again, this time into something that felt almost safe. By the time the ambulance carried me away, the storm had grown even fiercer. But miles away, inside the warm living room I once called home, everything was quiet, until the pounding began. Bang! 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 Dad looked up from the TV, confused. Claire froze mid-text, her phone slipping slightly in her hand. The pounding came again, harder this time. Dad opened the door, irritation already in his voice. "Whatever it is, can't it?" He stopped. Two police officers stood on the porch, soaked from the storm, their expressions urgent. "Are you the father of, your name?" the taller officer asked. Dad blinked. "Yes, why?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, your daughter was found unconscious near Willow Street. Severe hypothermia. High fever. She's in critical condition." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. Claire's breath hitched. Dad stepped forward, gripping the doorframe. What? "No, that can't. She's in her room. She left angry, but she'll come back. She always comes." "She wouldn't have survived much longer," the officer cut in gently. "A local resident found her just in time." Dad's face went pale, the color draining completely as the storm raged behind the officers like a living accusation. Claire swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the floor. I didn't think she'd actually leave. I thought she'd stay on the porch or—" The officer turned to her sharply. "She was out there alone. In this storm." Dad's voice cracked. Is she going to be okay?" "She's being treated now," the second officer replied. "But you need to get to the hospital immediately." Dad didn't even grab a coat. He sprinted past them into the storm, the same storm he'd thrown me into, now suddenly terrified it might take me forever. When I woke up again, everything was white, walls, lights, sheets. For a moment, I thought I'd died. Then I heard machines beeping softly beside me and a nurse whispering, "She's stabilizing." My chest felt tight, wrapped in heat packs. An oxygen mask pressed gently against my face. My body was heavy, but this time, I wasn't cold anymore. Outside the room, voices echoed. Dad's voice. Broken. Uneven. Nothing like the man who had screamed "Get out" hours earlier. "What do you mean she almost died?" he asked, voice shaking. A doctor replied calmly, "Severe hypothermia and a dangerous fever. Another 30 minutes out there and she might not have survived the night." Dad inhaled sharply. My God. I turned my head slightly, but the motion sent pain shooting through my skull. The door opened. Dad stepped in slowly, almost afraid to come closer. His eyes were red. He looked older, like the storm had carved new lines into his face. He whispered my name like it might break if he said it too loudly. But before he could speak, 2 police officers entered the room. "Sir," one of them said, "we need to confirm a few details about what happened before she left your home." Dad stiffened. She was upset. My older daughter said. The officer cut in. "Yes. We spoke to Claire." Dad's gaze flicked to them, anxiety tightening his jaw. "She told us her version," the officer continued. "But it doesn't match what we found. Some things don't add up." Dad looked from the officer to me, my pale face, my trembling lips, and realization slowly crept into his expression. Claire had lied. Dangerously. Recklessly. And for the first time, Dad seemed to understand the weight of what he had done, and what he almost lost. The next morning, the storm had passed, but inside the hospital, another kind of storm was building. I woke to the sound of raised voices outside my room. Dad's voice. Claire's voice. And the officer's. I turned my head slightly, just enough to hear. "Tell them the truth," Dad said, his voice trembling with anger he was trying to control. "Claire, what did you say to me that made me throw your sister out of the house?" Claire sniffed dramatically. I just told you what she said. She wished you'd crash your car." One officer interrupted firmly. "We checked text records, call logs, and even the neighbor's security camera. She never said anything like that." Claire froze. Dad took a step back as if the weight of her life physically pushed him. The officer continued. "A neighbor overheard the argument. Your sister was begging to be heard. You weren't listening to her at all." I closed my eyes, pain tightening my chest, not from the fever, but from hearing the truth laid out so plainly. Claire's voice cracked. Okay, fine. I lied. But it wasn't supposed to go this far. I just wanted Dad to take my side for once. She gets sympathy all the time. She's sick, she's fragile. Dad always worries about her." Dad stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. "You nearly killed your sister." Claire broke. Tears fell, but not the innocent kind, the desperate, guilty kind. "I didn't mean for her to run off. I thought she'd stay close to the house. I didn't know she'd almost." Dad's shout silenced her. "Stop. Stop talking. Just stop." His voice cracked. "What have I done?" He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. And in that moment, the truth, raw, painful, undeniable, finally surfaced between all of us. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. I lay there half awake, drifting in and out, when the door opened softly. Dad stepped inside. But he didn't look like my dad. He looked shattered. His shoulders sagged, his eyes swollen and red, his hands trembling as if he wasn't sure he had the right to touch anything in the room, including me. He pulled a chair beside my bed and sat down slowly, like every movement hurt. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he whispered my name, so gently it broke something inside me. "I failed you," he said, voice cracking. "I failed you in the worst way a father can." His breath hitched as he wiped his face. "I should have listened. I should have seen you were sick. I should have protected you. Instead, I believed a lie. I threw my own child into a storm." His voice broke completely. "You could have died, because of me." Tears spilled down his face, real tears, the kind I'd never seen from him. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he whispered. "But I'm begging you to let me try. I'll do better. I'll be better. I'll earn back every ounce of trust one destroyed." I blinked, my vision blurry not just from the fever, but from everything I'd held inside for years. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Dad reached out hesitantly, as if expecting me to pull away. His fingers barely touched my hand. "I love you," he said, voice raw. "I should have shown it. I should have fought for you instead of against you. I'm so sorry." For the first time since the storm began, I felt something warm break through the cold inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. Recovery wasn't quick. My fever lingered for days, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw the storm again. The darkness, the cold, the moment my dad's voice echoed behind me as I stepped into the rain. But something else lingered too, the look on his face when he realized what he'd almost lost. When I was finally discharged, Dad insisted on carrying my things, adjusting my blankets, hovering like he was afraid I might disappear if he blinked too long. The walk through the hospital doors felt like crossing into a new world, one where nothing was quite the same anymore. At home, everything looked familiar, yet foreign. My room was exactly how I left it, but Dad had cleaned it, added a new lamp, even placed a stuffed animal on my pillow. The one I used to love when I was little. A quiet apology without words. Claire kept her distance. Counseling sessions were mandatory now, ordered by Dad and supported by the officers who noted emotional manipulation in their report. She avoided my eyes, her guilt too heavy for her usual attitude. One afternoon, she knocked softly on my door. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not stepping inside. I didn't think it would go that far. I didn't answer. Some wounds needed time, not words. Dad, on the other hand, tried relentlessly. He cooked breakfast, drove me to school even when I insisted I was fine, checked my temperature so often the thermometer basically lived on the counter. He wasn't perfect. He was learning. And somewhere between the quiet dinners, the awkward apologies, and the long car rides where neither of us knew what to say, something began to shift. Not a full repair, scars take time to soften. But trust, tiny, fragile pieces of it, started returning. I realized then that healing doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means moving forward into something new, something harder, quieter, and maybe stronger. And for the first time since that night, I felt the faintest spark of hope that our family, damaged, shaken, but not destroyed, might survive this storm after all. People say one moment can change your entire life. For me, it was 3 words screamed in anger. Get out. Now. For weeks, those words haunted me. They clung to me like the cold from that storm, reminding me of the night everything shattered. But with time, and therapy, and slow healing, they stopped sounding like a sentence. They started sounding like a beginning. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes being forced out of a place you thought was safe pushes you into the person you were meant to become. A year passed. I was stronger now. Not just physically, but where it mattered most. I joined a writing club at school. The teacher encouraged me to share my story, carefully, anonymously. That story won a statewide competition. A scholarship followed. Then a chance to speak at a youth conference about resilience, truth, and finding your voice even when you've been silenced. Dad sat in the front row that day, hands clasped, eyes glossy with pride and regret and something softer, something earned. When I stepped off the stage, people hugged me. Strangers thanked me. Claire even whispered, "I'm proud of you." And for once, I believed she meant it. But the twist wasn't the awards. It wasn't the applause. It wasn't even the healing of a fractured family. The real twist was me. The girl who once shook in the rain was now someone who could stand on a stage and tell the world what storms do to a person, and how they can shape you, sharpen you, strengthen you. Get out, my dad once said. And I did. Out of my fear. Out of my silence. Out of the version of myself who believed she didn't matter. The storm didn't break me. It revealed me. And that was the real beginning of my life.